What is it about time that confounds us? We spend it, we save it, we while it away, we waste it, we kill it, we complain about not having enough of it or about having too much of it on our hands. We regret what we've done with it, we give it away, we want it back. We say time and again when something is bothering us, and it's time when something is supposed to end.
Welcome to the Busy Worlds Book Club. We are bringing you everything you need to know about all the trending books and whether or not they are worth your time. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Catherine.
And I'm Casey. Today we are reviewing, Buckeye by Patrick Ryan, which is a multi-generational saga about two families who live in kind of small town Ohio. And it follows two couples whose lives end up being sort of forever connected by an affair between two of the people. And it kind of follows those characters and then their children. And the story is sort of about like the ripple effects of that one decision and why the characters do it, what they do after that. And so it's basically like a big mosaic of these people and their lives in small town Ohio over the course of several world wars and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Many war.
It's like Forrest Gump, but for Ohio.
It's a great way of describing it.
Sort of, yeah.
And with people with disabilities with their legs. Anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah.
Well.
Okay, so did you guys find reviews off of the internet?
Yeah, I mean, the reviews were just kind of boring, not gonna lie.
But it is a serious book.
It's a very serious book. But kind of the one-star reviews all echoed the similar themes of it's slow.
Yeah. Slow and boring. That's what the
slow and
say.
Boring. That was and that's what kind of this review is from Goodreads. It's a one-star review saying so slow. I would have stopped reading, but had invested too much time.
Yeah.
And I feel that hardcore when it comes to books like these, where I'm just like, I'm 300 pages in. I can't stop now.
Right.
Not a short book.
No.
I have a 4.25 star review because it's Storygraph and you can do that. Started a bit slow, but ended up really liking it. Also, insert character name is garbage. That's a spoiler, so I didn't say who, but
yeah.
Well, we all agree, I'm sure.
Yeah, it could have been about many of them, but I'm guessing I know who it's about.
Probably.
Okay. I have a handful. Two of them because they follow the same theme that I found funny. So this is a 2-star review. It says, I really hated this book and forced myself to finish it, only giving 2 stars because it was set in Ohio.
Oh, gross.
And this one, another 2 stars, says, this book was so unhappy and frustrating. It makes so much sense it was set in Ohio.
Period.
Ohio people enjoying the representation, everyone else?
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah. But like, this could have been set in small town Missouri. I can't judge.
Yeah.
This could have been set in small town anywhere in the Midwest, but I will say the fact that it's set in Ohio, I have deep-seated hatred towards Ohio because I come from Michigan stock. So this book was a little hard for me.
Right. My last review, 1 star, too boring. Maybe there's a good story here, but I'll never stay awake long enough to find out.
Oh.
Period.
Yep.
Well, most people actually liked it, despite what we had just read. Goodreads review overall 4.19 out of 5. Fable 4.0 out of 5, and Storygraph 4.26 out of 5. So not a high 4, but still in the 4s. Where did you guys fall?
I think I'm actually in the middle. I'll go first. I gave the book 3.5 stars. Like many of the reviews, I just found it a little bit boring. there's one character who is admittedly a piece of shit. However, I personally felt like she was the only interesting character in the book. And so I found myself a little frustrated, especially because many of the characters in the book make pretty grotesque mistakes and unfair decisions that impact the other characters. And I felt like that one character was vilified when the other characters were sort of afforded empathy in a redemption arc. So, and to be honest, I found it a little sexist. Like I'll say it. um, and so I just didn't ultimately love the story, and I felt it was too much work for what I got in the end.
I'm just going to echo your sentiments because I felt the exact same way about that character. I actually turned at the end of the book was literally like, that's my favorite character now, just because I want to spite the author a bit.
Like cringing.
Yeah, Caitlin's cringing. It's fine. It's not my favorite.
I still
character.
hate that character. Sorry.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, like she was hateable at that point. Yeah. But anyway, I also gave it 3.5, but I'm closer to a 3 than a 4. But I was oscillating between the two because it's a very beautiful book. And I liked a lot of the characters in the sense like the nuance, the gray. It really kind of captured small town life during this time period. And like my parents are both baby boomers. My dad, thankfully, like didn't get drafted to Vietnam, but he remembers vividly that watching the lottery draft system when he was in college and praying that his number was high. And thankfully it was like 360 out of 365. So he got incredibly lucky. So it was very interesting reading that kind of like perspective of this time period coming from parents who grew up in kind of like middle class suburban childhoods, one on the East Coast and one in the Midwest. And I liked a lot of the characters despite their like flaws and their issues. I thought it was incredibly interesting, but at the same time, very boring at times and way too long.
Yeah. I echo beautifully written, just needed a harsher editor, I fear.
I guess I was the highest then. I gave 4 stars. It's not well paced and it's a little long. However, at the end, I was really glad I read it. It was really beautifully written. I really liked some of the like life analysis that happened, and I liked a lot of the full circle moments, how like war started this, and then, you know, the ripple effects of those wars and how generationally like it played out differently for each generation's war. And I don't know. I thought it was a lovely, bittersweet ending, very authentic to real life. It did feel like a snapshot of real life from that era. And also, we love a witchy woman.
Yes. That is a critique I have of this book. Not enough witchiness from the woman.
Yeah, from the one woman who was the witch.
That's when it started to get interesting. I was like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, this is an easy one. Was the book more plot or character driven?
I mean, the characters make these mistakes and then the ripple effects happen.
They live out their whole lives in this book.
Yeah.
It was literally life and death.
Yeah. Okay. Have you or would you read other books by the author?
I have not. I'm not opposed if it's a little shorter.
Yeah. I'm like on the fence because it's a very well written book, but at the same time, it's not at the top of my list of authors to read.
Yeah, I feel sort of similarly. This author has written a lot of kind of random stuff just based off of me scrolling his Goodreads profile. So I'm not really sure because I'm just also not a huge historical fiction girl. Like I think the bar for me is pretty high to pick up historical fiction. So I'd probably pass, but I don't know. If the internet got obsessed enough with it, then probably yes.
And this one was like a read with Jenna or Reese's book club or something. And it was Barnes & Noble pushed it really hard this past year. So like,
yeah,
it caught our attention as historically not super historical fiction girls.
Yeah, it was also part of Book of the Month.
Yes.
Yeah, it got a lot of hype.
Mm.
Okay. The pacing of the book. How long did it take you to read?
I think it took me all total a week to read, but that was picking up and putting it back down and like not picking it back up again for multiple days. The pacing's just really slow. I did indeed almost fall asleep reading it. That's what I get for reading in bed at like 11 o'clock at night. But yeah, it's not greatly paced because it is slice of life and you're going from like 1930s to 1970s. So that's a lot of time frame in which you're in
1940s.
this life. You kind of oscillate back and forth between the 30s and 40s when you're going through their childhoods.
I guess so. Had I not spent an Audible credit on this book, it would not have been done in a week. I was listening to this a lot in just doing housework, other things, driving.
At what time speed?
1.5. I'm not crazy. I don't know. So I listened to the whole thing. I didn't read. I feel like it would have taken me a little longer to read. But also it was beautifully written enough. I didn't mind the audiobook. I don't typically do that for like a historical fiction. But there also isn't like as much dialogue. Like it's not a dialogue heavy book. So it read really well on an audiobook. It just like the beginning is slow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took me a full week of lots. It's a 15-hour audiobook, guys.
It's long.
Yeah. It also took me about a week to read. I think I have similar things to say. There were parts of the book that I really devoured and I really enjoyed. There were characters I really enjoyed and moments of getting to know them better that I really liked. This book has some really strong side characters, I would say. And everyone in the book is morally gray. So there were things that were like very interesting and like snapshots of American history that were interesting to read about people actually living. But there were other parts that were the opposite when I just really struggled to get through it. So, it is what it is.
But being a snapshot of life, life is slow sometimes and other times it's not.
Yeah.
It's very authentic.
Sometimes men are boring.
Yeah, that's the main problem.
Yes.
The main characters are mostly men.
Yeah, and the men were boring and the women were interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, one woman sucked and one was witchy. Like,
Yeah.
I would say one was complex and one was witchy.
Yeah. I'd say one was
damaged by trauma and one was witchy.
One was unfairly blamed for a situation that took two people to create.
Yes.
Okay. Unfairly blamed for two situations that took two people to create.
Yes.
We'll get into this later. I don't need to get distracted on this. Would you watch a movie, TV show, or TV show of the book?
No,
I wouldn't.
I don't know. Like, I probably wouldn't watch it just because I don't watch those kinds of movies, but it could make an interesting movie.
Yeah. I can see it being a sort of done up box office thing with a bunch of like 10 famous people in it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'll see it.
I don't typically watch historical fictionist movies, so.
Me either.
I don't know.
I like historical fiction movies, but this is just like a little too boring for me to do as a movie.
Well, a movie would cut out so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not arguing for it. I wouldn't watch it.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Caitlin's here to play devil's advocate today.
Okay. Should we do our busy girl ratings?
Yeah.
I give it a 2.
Yeah, I give it a 2.
I also was going to give it a 2. So
we're glad we're all aligned.
Like, I'm not mad I read it. It wasn't my favorite book ever, but it took a long time, even when it was being read to me.
Yeah.
Right.
The pacing is kind of atrocious, not gonna lie.
Yeah. This is one of those books I am not mad I read, but would only recommend under very certain circumstances.
Yeah.
Like, I would have to know that you're like obsessed with American fiction, or like I have a friend who's from Ohio and I'd be like, you should read it because, you know, you'll understand all the references and whatever. But that's pretty much it.
Also, like, what a funny time for this book to exist when Ohio is like a weird online joke.
Yeah. Skibbity Ohio Riz.
Enough.
I'm glad you know what it is. I don't.
Yeah. That kind of talk is banished.
And our child of the group,
Hey.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the spoiler alert section. As we've said before, most of the events of the book hinge on one affair, and then that affair kind of traps this group of people in each other's vicinity in this sort of tortured way for the rest of their lives, and really punishes them for a variety of mistakes that they made up to that point. And this one grand mistake kind of makes everything worse and sets everything in motion. So, yeah, we're about to spoil all of that. And it is very sophisticated how all the events end up connecting. So, you know, decide if you want to read the Grand Ohio Bible and then return.
okay. Well, let's talk about Bonamy, the tiny town that grows before our eyes throughout the book. Very Midwestern, could feel it in my bones. But what did you think about the setting and how that played into the time period and the story overall?
I'm so glad you said it out loud because I was calling it Bonhomie this whole time.
Yeah.
I was wondering when I was listening to it how it was spelled, and then I like picked up a book in the store today and looked and opened the jacket. I was like, that's how it's spelled?
Yeah.
Bonamy.
I found the scene setting one of my favorite parts of this book. I felt like Ohio itself really became a character, and all the towns felt really rich and like really contextualized, like very set in stone. And everything felt very just like believable. Like I could tell this person had either lived in Ohio or did a lot of research or spent a lot of time in Ohio. Like no one who had never been to Ohio could have written this.
Yeah.
And I thought the storytelling style was really beautiful. I thought, again, like all the historical fiction elements of the book were really strong. It was more of like a pacing series of events issue, not like a storytelling issue, because I felt like the writing was really good.
Yeah. I love the time period. I love the town because the town kind of came to life and became its own entity. And like the idea of small town life, but then also like it becomes a boom town because of the semi-industrial revolution post World War II. I feel bad for it because I already know like if you wrote this book 40 years in the future,
book 2 is a little more depressing.
Yeah, it's going to look a little depressing now because that industrial revolution collapsed. Yeah. So I already felt bad for it reading it. I was like, oh no, this is heading towards a bad path. Anyway, I thought it was very interesting. I liked the time period. I think there's not a lot of books set in America during this time period. Like you read about like stuff about the war and you set it in the war, like when you're there, like in the Pacific or in Europe. There's not a lot of like books where it just like starts from World War II, pre-World War II, and then goes all the way through Vietnam, and how each of those wars and how America and its mistakes and its decisions to get involved in international affairs in very detrimental ways could directly impact small town America, and how you are losing boys, very young men being shipped off in a continuous like cycle toward war, starting in World War I, World War II, Korea, and then Vietnam. And I'm always interested in that time period. Like I said, my dad grew up during that time period. He was born as part of the baby boom immediately after World War II, when his dad came home from the Navy in the Pacific. So this whole time period's always been fascinating to me only because it's like anecdotal from my dad's stories and him experiencing the Vietnam War from the lens of the lucky one who didn't get drafted. Um, so I loved the time period, loved the town, and those are the most interesting parts of the books outside of the female characters, which I thought were the most interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to see more of the women home from war. You got to see more of how careers and jobs shifted. You had people wanting to volunteer in World War II to Vietnam, where people were actively draft dodging. Um, like you saw how opinions on government shifted over time. And I don't know, I thought the whole thing was super interesting and watching this town grow and change alongside of it. And then like you even saw like racism and segregation and that sort of thing and how this time period so much happened. And like you, like my grandpa was a Korean War veteran, so and he wouldn't want to talk about the war, because it was different than his brother who was a World War II veteran who was welcomed home, and they were factory working Ford employees in small town Missouri. Like I feel like I don't know how you read this in the Midwest and don't like feel something because it feels so familiar to a lot of our pasts, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's part of why I would think I was so impressed with like the town is because I was like, this just feels so familiar. Like this is just like, being in Missouri or um I visited a friend who lives in small town Ohio and I was
Right.
like,
And it's like not even just Midwest because Ohio's not super Midwest technically,
yeah,
but just like the middle America people,
The Rust
right.
Belt,
the blue collar families.
Right. People who work regular jobs in little towns and
Right.
work in the factories. Yeah.
okay. What about Cal and Becky? Becky has a psychic gift, which is very interesting, and it causes a lot of friction between her and Cal. Cal ultimately cheats on Becky with Margaret, and then Becky ultimately forgives Cal after a period of separation. What do you guys think of all that? This couple, their storyline.
Well, I mean, freaking love Becky. Like, love her psychic ability. That was my one gripe about the book is we touch on the psychic ability and she talks about it in her perspective at the beginning of the book. And then she has this priest come up to her who is just like warning her away from her psychic gift. But then we never see that interaction ever happen again. And I wanted more of the pushback to her psychic ability in this book, only because like through like I mean, we've read a lot of books about witches being burned at the stake and being called a witch and having these like psychic powers. I would have loved to see the pushback from religious figures or the town for this psychic ability because it's not totally believable that the town was just okay with all of this. Just
I'm not
judging.
sure the town had the energy to care.
Yeah, but that priest came up to her, and that's why I'm like, that one
Yeah.
interaction should have been like
She
repeated.
got a lot of Becky at the beginning in general, and then she kind of faded.
Yeah. And I guess that's my one main gripe. It's just like, I feel like a town, especially during the Red Scare and during communism, like post World War II, like pre Vietnam War. I know the Red Scare, like reading it in history books, like they were calling people communists over the stupidest of shit. You're telling me that they didn't call the witch over there a communist? Like that's such an easy like target right there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I felt like her journey felt a little too simple to me, especially for a character who I did think was very built out and was very complex. I think what I loved about Becky is that she was a very like resolute and strong person, but not in a loud or flashy way. She was just a person who stood up for herself and who knew her value and didn't get out of the way for other people's convenience. And so I thought that she was really kind of admirable in that way and very realistic. Um, I liked her gift. I agree. I missed her as the book went on. I wanted more from her. And I feel like we actually felt the affair more from Cal's perspective than Becky's. And I wish we got a lot deeper into Becky's experience in that part of the book. Um, especially because I am still very frustrated with the fact that like Cal just sort of had the affair for almost no reason.
Mhm.
Like he wasn't particularly unhappy, like they were having problems in their marriage, but it wasn't like they hated each other. It wasn't even like he felt particularly drawn to Margaret other than she was an attractive woman. I just felt like his motivations to me never fully passed the smell test, and they felt a little paper thin in a book where pretty much nothing was paper thin. And it made me sort of dislike them as a couple in a way that I just could never really get over.
No, I agree. Like, I do think that's where some of the complexity of like the time period lies is like he wanted to go to war. He couldn't because of his physical disability. Therefore, right place, right time on VE Day for a beautiful woman to give him a kiss. You know, like it's a ripple, and I see it and I appreciate the complexity in that way. But you're right, like they kiss. It didn't have to go further than that. There was no reason for it to, other than they both needed people to talk to and got curious and started talking to each other. And that's how it happened. But like, I don't know. It was definitely poor decision making, and that's very clear. And Becky's a saint.
Because
Yeah,
this
they
is
both
part of. Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
they both have physical desires that aren't being
Yeah.
met. And that's like the main crux of it, but at the same time that's kind of surface level.
Right. Because Margaret was in a actual loveless marriage. Like to me, her motivations make a lot of sense and actually feel justified. Not totally justified, but you know what I mean. Like you understand why she's in that position and in that space.
Right.
Which is
Cal's fighting with his wife because he doesn't believe in spirits.
right. Like he's being a dick. And he's also like in his feels about not being able to be like a quote unquote proper man. And so he uses this experience to make himself feel like a proper man. And that's a disgusting thing to do.
Yeah.
Like he's literally just an insecure little boy who couldn't like have a real conversation with his wife and then had an affair. But that's part of why I resent how Margaret is ultimately treated, because I feel like Cal was actually like not that good of a person. And he doesn't really ever get his comeuppance for that, other than he almost loses Becky, which he deserved. Because even he would never have told Becky, he would never have come clean if Margaret hadn't done it for him.
True.
So it was like Margaret, yes, had an affair, which was a bad thing to do. But her reason for entering into the affair was understandable when Cal's wasn't. Yet Cal is kind of given this pass for his weaknesses and shortcomings as a person when Margaret isn't.
Mhm.
Like, I know he ultimately like stays, which is technically like the forgivable thing, but like he was in control of his life in a way Margaret never was, and that is unfair that that is not like taken into consideration.
Yeah, he felt emasculated and he took it out on Becky, basically.
Like he's a little bitch.
Yeah, he's a little
He's
bitch.
just another insecure man, and he's because he's like this gentle presence. He's treated like a victim. I'm like, you're actually a bad person. Like, if
Yeah.
you the only thing stopping you from making bad choices is that they're not available to you very often, you're not a good person.
Yeah. He needed a woman to tell him that he was a man, and his wife wasn't doing that for him, so he sought out Margaret. And I do hate how Margaret was basically made the villain of it all, because I felt she was very clear in what she was expecting of her life and what she wanted from her life. I mean, she said she didn't want to have kids, and then like she was put into a situation where she has kids. And I'm not saying like it takes two to tango. So like obviously like she should have been more careful, and obviously like she put herself in that situation, but at the same time like she had been saying, I don't want kids, I don't want this, like I just want to live life. And then she's kind of forced into this suburban small town life that she never wanted. She wanted to live in a big city. She didn't want kids. And she's kind of forced to love this thing that came out of her body, but she was like, I just don't feel it. Like, and she had said that when he was born, where she's just like, breastfeeding is painful. I hate it so much. And then she's getting judged for her mothering and her motherhood. And she's just like, I just don't feel it. I don't feel it like everyone else. And so
Right.
I felt like she was vilified for that. And I'm like, that's not something to be vilified for. That's something that like needs to be discussed and like examined. Because there's some women out here that like are forced to have kids that don't want to have kids. And they're put in an uncomfortable situation. And I think that's where you have those conversations about like child-free life and like childless life.
I do feel like where she really actually became vilified is the fact that she imploded everyone else's life, drove away with her kids staring at her after lamenting about never knowing her mother, and then shitting on the one woman who took care of her.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where I grew my dislike for her. Is like I'm totally fine with the fact that she never wanted a child necessarily. It's what she did after the fact. Like you could have been like, hey, this isn't for me, I'm out right at the beginning. But no, your 10-year-old child is sitting in the driveway watching you pull away and you don't even look at him. Like
that was sad. That was incredibly sad.
Yeah. And then like, I don't know, just never reaching out and leaving those letters to blow up Cal and Becky's lives on top of it was not fair. I don't know. I mean, nothing about the situation was fair, but I think it's the fact that she repeated what made her unsatisfied with life on her kid. And I don't think that's cool.
No, like she's a bad person too.
Yeah.
Like my issue and the reason I feel like the way the book ultimately went felt unfair to me is I think it sort of treated like the abandonment of the mother as like the greatest all-time sin, which I don't agree with that. I don't think that the like a woman abandoning her child is any worse than a man abandoning his child, and men do that all the time. And so to me, I felt like her situation was treated almost as like, how could she? And it's like, yes, I'm not saying we should normalize what she did and accept what she did, but men do what she did all the time and no one blinks twice.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
It's just like, why are we treating it like this is like civilization ruining? No. Men abandon their children all the time.
It's also a different time period.
Like, yeah, but the book didn't have to portray it that way.
Yeah.
And then every other character gets this sort of like understanding redemption arc where they come back together, you know, they make do with their sins or whatever. And she's just sort of left as this like unhappy woman struggling to live in the city. And I just don't agree with that being where her character is left. Like, I think that's okay that she, you know, handled the situation badly. She hurt her child. She could not stop herself from reliving the cycle of trauma in her children that she also experienced. But like, she's not going to come back from it. She never ultimately like changes her life. She never like becomes, you know, a self-realized person. It just felt like she kind of walks off screen and then that's the end of it. And I thought she was a really complicated, determined person. Like, I just wanted to see more of like how she actually lived that experience and like why.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I think it's very a complicated situation. I'm not saying she's a good person. At no point do I think that she's a good person. I think she made some very shitty choices and did some very shitty things, but she was complicated and complex, and she had her boundaries, and those boundaries were kind of crossed. And unfortunately, that's what kind of put her in the situation. And I also think she was kind of set up to fail when she married a man that wasn't honest with her about his sexuality. And I'm not saying like she totally, like he needed to come out with it immediately. But I blame society for putting her into that situation. It's less so that I blame Felix or her. It's just kind of the unfortunate situation of the times. I blame society for putting both of those people in that situation and creating the like conditions for this to happen.
Yeah. So I actually sort of hate Felix. Felix is one of the reasons why I have a big bone to pick with this book, because I don't think he deserved the redemption arc that he got. And I want to be clear that like I have a lot of empathy for his situation. I do not hate him like
No, but he did the same thing she did. He just didn't create a child.
Yes.
Yes. And he treats her like she's so evil when he ruined her life. She had one chance to find someone who loved and cherished her, and he trapped her with him, wasted years of her life, and then was like, "What do you mean you don't want to stay in this loveless marriage with me, even though I've been in love with someone else this whole time, grieving them, refusing to talk to you or explain anything to you about it, and making you feel unwanted your entire life?" Like, that is really fucked up. He did a fucked up thing to her, and his reasons and like how that situation happened are reasonable and understandable. It doesn't mean he didn't ruin her life. And so, and there's really no acknowledgement of that. He's like, "Well, I still care about you as a friend." I'm like, she sacrificed years of her life trying to make you love her. How could you just turn around to her and be like, "I've always been like, tried to be a good husband to you"? Like, that's like
No, you
actual,
haven't.
that's an
Yeah.
And I
actual
do
load of
think
shit.
they loved each other in their own way, but it was not a healthy way.
No.
Right. And it created, again, this dynamic where like he did trigger her trauma because he abandoned her. He was present physically, but completely absent mentally, emotionally, sexually. And so that was deeply unfair. Like, he did it for reasonable reasons. It doesn't mean that wasn't like really
And like in the time period, I'm sure he did think, oh, maybe this will fix it. I really
Right.
like this woman.
right.
But like, you gotta own up at some point.
Right. Like, intentions aren't the ultimate reality of like what you've done to another person. You're not a villain because you did that, but you should own up to like the way you actually hurt another person. And I felt like he was treated like his story was almost more sympathetic than hers, when in reality they were both equally trapped.
Yeah.
And both being trapped is what led to the ultimate ending, because would Margaret have fled the fucking scene if she wasn't stuck married to a man who like basically emotionally tortured her for years?
Here's the other thing. I think, yes, she might have. I think she was waiting for an inciting incident to get out. I don't think she knew she was waiting, but I think she was waiting.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
She never wanted to be a mother. Like,
No.
that's the other trap, is she should have been able to have an abortion, and she just couldn't.
Like,
And
she wanted him to find out about the child,
Yeah.
yeah,
but he never did.
because I think she also just got tired of living with all the lies, like living unhappily with all the lies.
Mm-hmm.
And he was keeping many of his own, and Carl was keeping his. Becky's the only
Cal?
freaking person in this book who could like live honestly. Oh, Cal, whatever his name is.
My my favorite character was Everett.
I love Everett. He's my favorite
I
character
loved
too.
Everett. I loved
Who
Everett.
ended up being the voice of reason,
Yes.
Yes.
despite being the cuckoo old man.
Yes.
His criticisms of all the presidents were so valid.
Yes.
It was hilarious. And he was that first generation who went through World War I and was like, you ruined my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing the different generations, like,
Right.
he was important. But at the end, he's the one who's like, he's the one who talks about forgiveness, which is a theme in the book, and about, you don't have to like forgive them all the way, but like you have to tell them now that you still love them, or else when else are you going to do it?
Right.
And I was like, oh, this crotchety old man really just bringing everybody together.
With his Western book club.
Okay, that was the cutest thing ever.
So cute. Might I add, another man who did borderline unforgivable things but gets an ultimate redemption arc. Not saying he didn't deserve it. He was my favorite side character by far, but an alcoholic hoarder who accidentally emotionally abused his child, making them live with an alcoholic and a hoarder. But he sobers up, and then he's amazing.
It's because the dog did it.
The dog
did
saved
it.
us. Yeah.
The poor dog. I cried a bit on that one.
Yeah.
But
I
like,
loved his crazy letters too.
I loved his crazy letters. Even after he got sober, he sent crazy letters. I fucking loved it. Because I'm like, yes, get him. Get Eisenhower. Get him. Sick him.
Right. And a character we can forgive because he did take accountability for his actions, ultimately. With the help of Becky, our queen.
Yes, Becky helped everyone in this book.
The
Becky
only
is like a
person
saint.
she lied to the whole time, though.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of like, This book is very artful because everything is like created for peak irony, because it's like Margaret's like one dalliance creates a child that she did not want. She like lasted her whole marriage not having a child, and then this one time she gets a child, and then
To be
has to.
fair, it talks about how she didn't use her diaphragm that time. That's on
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
You
Because
didn't
they
have to do it in the closet when you found out Felix
closet.
was alive.
Yeah. And so it's like she has to live with this affair forever now, with a consequence that she did not want. Um, Cal is similarly tortured, like knows that this is his child that he can't claim because that means admitting the affair. Um, Margaret and Felix have to live with each other despite having no interest in each other, which sets up the ultimate abandonment. It's just like everything is so convoluted. Becky
The
can speak to
seeking
ghosts.
of answers from his gay lover who died brought the two boys together.
Yes. Yes. Becky being able to see ghosts, or like not see ghosts, but like, commune with spirits. And that ultimately, like, her son dies. And then she has to reckon for the first time with being in the seat of this position that she's walked so many other people through. Like, it's just so much.
Yep.
Okay.
It's so connected. It's masterfully done.
Mhm.
Yes. All of it being interconnected is super masterful. Let's kind of get into the second generation, Skip and Tom.
Yeah.
What did you guys think?
Third generation.
The third generation. You're right. It would be the third generation. The third generation. What did you think of their bond, and about kind of how the choices that adults make for them in their lives impact them?
So, okay, don't hate me. This is the part of the book where I started to get really uninterested. The boys did not hold my interest. I found them extremely boring. Their friendship was only interesting because we understood the background information. But as characters in and of themselves, I did not find them interesting. And this is the part of the book where I started to get ready for things to kind of wrap up. I was like, all right, let's get to the reveal. Let's get to it.
I don't know, like Skip was your all-American boy or whatever, but I kind of appreciated that Tom didn't make it easy for Margaret to be a mom. Their relationship was strained. It was not perfect. It was hard. And then he ended up being a hippie, which was funny.
Yeah,
But
a
like,
communist hippie.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting that the person who didn't want to be a mom then didn't get an easy child. And it added a lot more tension, I think, to the marriage too. Because as old as he got, she was like, no, I still don't want to do this. Like, I love him because I do, but I still don't want to do this.
And that was a good point where Felix did get his comeuppance, because he was very judgmental of her as a mother, and then realized once he had to be actual caretaker to his child that shit was a lot harder than he thought.
That Tom was very short-circuited, short-fused, and had a lot of anger.
Right.
That he had
been through a lot.
He's been through a lot, but like also he had been taking all of his anger out on his mother and not his father, because his mother was the one who was around, and then suddenly she's not around, so he has to take it out on his father.
Right. And I was like,
when he stopped talking to Felix, that was kind of sad, but you were also like, no, that tracks. Like, yeah, it's his mother's child.
Right.
And he's been lied to for years.
Right.
Yeah.
And his best friend is dead and is his brother, his half brother, and he didn't know before he died, and can never have that conversation with him.
Yeah.
That was like gut wrenching.
He was
like, I'm having a great time. And they're like, but he was dead by the time he got the letter. I was like, oh.
I was actually so angry at the adults for not coming clean when Cal decided that he was going to enlist. I was like,
Skip.
Oh,
Cal
Skip.
Jr.
Sorry.
I mean, Cal Jr. Yeah, so that works.
Cal Jr. My bad. I was so mad. I thought when I was reading the book, I thought that him enlisting was going to be like the spark that set off the fuse, because it was like, people were dying, and, this is something that you surely want to communicate when everyone can have the conversation. Ultimately, they bore the consequences of waiting. I think the fact that Tom and Skip couldn't have a conversation about it is part of why Skip or Tom, sorry, I get them confused, took it so hard, because there's just no resolution and there never will be. Like, you can only resolve it with the people who are still here.
And I did find it interesting because like Skip being the one who died is like very intentional, because there was a line in the first time that like Skip and Tom meet each other where Skip was like, I felt this automatic connection to him. Like I felt a bond snap into place, and I was like, oh, he has his mother's gifts. He has the ability to kind of see those auras and bonds, and he could tell that this was his brother, and he didn't know at the time, but he already was like very psychic and intuitive. And so it makes sense for Skip being the one to die then, because Tom did not have that intuition and Skip did.
Right. And it's also like, there are instances, right, where long lost siblings or kids from sperm donors or like whatever the situation is really do gravitate towards each other. There's some weird connection that happens when you share genetics with someone like that. And so I did enjoy that, just in the sense that like the way they were in each other's orbits felt very realistic to me, something like very believable. And yeah, it just made sense.
It did. Yep, that was the only people I was truly sad for, was Tom and
Yeah.
Skip, never knowing while they were both alive that they were half brothers.
Yeah. The real victims.
Yep.
Okay.
What about we kind of touched on it, but Margaret really becomes a villain when she finds out the truth about Felix and then decides to just truth bomb everybody else involved.
Yeah.
And then drive away while her child stares.
Yeah. So
what do we think about that as like a climax point?
I was really shocked that she sent the letters. I thought she was going to leave and let everyone else decide how to deal with it. I mean, obviously, the book is, better because she blows shit up and then leaves. And so that kicks off everything else. But I would have assumed that she would have just left, shared information with Felix and then let him decide what to do with it. Which to me, I think is honestly almost worse. Hear me out. Just because then she puts all the weight on Felix to be the one who handles the situation.
That's true.
Now, as it was, she did not help handle the situation regardless. But, she was tired of all the secrets and the lies. And so she took matters into her own hands.
I do
to be fair, she... Oh, go ahead.
Oh. I do think she was selfish a bit, and not necessarily in general about this situation, but just in life, because she was only ever satisfied with materialistic things. She like was always just looking for the next thing, and then she got stuck. So when she had the opportunity to make her life interesting once again, she took it. It was about her. It was about her life being interesting. And that was just kind of her personality. So
I do think she is a really good example of like just women having limited options, because like after she does leave, now she's an adult divorced woman. Like there's not that many options like at that time period for women. She's not educated, she hasn't been working. So there wasn't that many avenues for her to truly reinvent herself if that's what she had wanted to do, which I think is part of why her ending is so limited and so sad. Is just that she was sort of just like wishing to roll back time, and those opportunities were already gone for her.
Yeah. And she just like wasn't ever comfortable when something was good. Like she could have lived with Lydia forever.
Yeah.
But I mean, she was aspiring for greater things, and like she was given this
her greater thing
world.
Was to live in Columbus, Ohio.
I know, but like that may seem small to us because like we're more well-traveled and like we live in this time period. But like that's a big deal for someone that lives in an orphanage in the 1940s, in the 1930s. I think it's very interesting because like she didn't care that Felix was gay. And she had said that. She was just like, okay, it is what it is. Like, people love who they love. Like, it was just kind of like, that wasn't the issue. It was the lying. And that was the main thing where she was having problems with. Like, and so I think that's why she's not totally the villain in this story, only because, like, she was put in this situation as much as everyone else because of lies told to her.
Right.
And I agree. I wish she had a better ending because, yes, did she blow everything up and leave? 100%. And should she take accountability for that? 100%. But at the same time, like, everyone else is kind of given this redemption and she isn't, because she is the one who left and she's the mother. So therefore she has to take responsibility for this kid in some arbitrary and archaic form of parenting, and that, like, the mother always takes the responsibility for these things. And it's just unfortunate that she was put into that situation and that she didn't get to say goodbye to Lydia and that no one really understood her pain and she never felt comfortable telling people about her past and her
She
pain.
ghosted Lydia, first of all.
I know. That's why I felt entirely sad about Lydia and not about her. But at the same time, that's sad for her. That was her mother.
But
also, she ghosted her because she was embarrassed about her life. It wasn't because she didn't want to talk to Lydia. It was because she didn't even know how to be honest. Like, she didn't know how to come clean.
I do, though. I kind of liked the fact that she was too late to talk to Felix, because I feel like, and that's where he gets the better ending. He'd found his people. There was this little found family that was built, him, his gay friend, his son, and his son's real dad and wife. Like, it's cutesy. They're all playing house together or whatever. But I kind of liked that she didn't get to, like, see him before he died to taint that. But at the same time, like, they got very different endings.
Right. And that's why I just disagree, because I think she was treated like she was worse than everyone else when, like, she would never have been in that situation if Felix hadn't lied to her and trapped her and made her feel unloved. And then if Cal hadn't done the exact same things he did. And, like, I know this is crazy because the way she goes about this is what makes it so wrong. But, like, Cal just being able to, like, live in his lies and get away with it doesn't sit right with me either. Like, I actually kind of side with her in the fact that I think she was well within her rights to tell Becky, especially as the boys were getting older and the connection between them was getting more obvious. Like, the idea that they could just have kept on lying, which is what Cal wanted, is ludicrous. However, she did not go about it in a good
appropriate way.
Yeah. Which is part of why that's, like, her ultimate, like, villain action. Okay. So one of the big points that ties all of these years and events and people together outside of the affair are the wars. And kind of the major theme in the book is every generation in the book is impacted in some way by the war, and it impacts, even though most of them are not fighting in the wars, it impacts how they see the country, the economic status around them, their kind of day-to-day realities. You know, their husbands are leaving or their sons are leaving. And so everyone comes back impacted in a different way. And that's a big part of every character's journey. What did you guys think about that and all the grief and the trauma that people were working through, often without talking about it?
I thought this was the best written part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You see it starting with Everett and Roman, and then it just ripples down. The people who couldn't go to war, the people who did and regretted it, and then the people who were drafted and didn't want to go, but the few people who did volunteer for Vietnam. You know, like, you saw so many facets of how people were affected by war in such a concentrated area. So then you can think about, okay, magnify that across the entire country. And what a broken society war leaves behind. So I thought that was the best part of the entire book, was just the kind of running commentary on, oh, the next war is here. What's going to happen now?
It definitely made war a it was war was a commodity. War was like basically just the general theme of the book in the sense of men and men's bodies were treated as a source of commodity to feed this like war and to feed the wars and to feed this military complex. And some of the wars you felt were more justified, and you could see that in the town and feeling more like gung ho and patriotic during like World War II. And then you get to Korea and Vietnam, and they no longer feel patriotic because they don't feel like they are like justified at all.
And they're losing.
And they're losing. And I think it's very interesting seeing how war can impact such a small town in Ohio, because like you can think about the grand scheme of things and the numbers of like World War I, 20% of the male population in Europe died in World War I. That number's crazy to think about, but when you isolate it into smaller towns, like a small town in Ohio, holy shit, that's 20% of the male population in Ohio, or 20% of the population in this small town, Ohio. That's a lot. And it just shows you the greater impact. And then the men who come home and not getting the proper psychiatric care because they're expected to be a man, they're expected to be tough and not cry and not talk about their feelings. And so how society has completely devalued them and to like taken away all of their autonomy and all of their grief and trauma. And then society's reactions to each individual wars and how the Vietnam War vets were treated. It's just all kind of incredibly sad. And that was like probably the most potent part of the book.
Yeah. That kind of leads us right into Skip's death, which is sort of like the last kicker in this book. I would consider that the last big twist that kind of sets up the ending portion of the novel, when all the characters deal with the truth finally fully being out, and reconcile or don't reconcile. So what did you guys think of Skip's death and Tom finding out that they were brothers?
It was sad. And it was like the one kid who actually volunteered for Vietnam, of course, because he didn't know what else to do with life, and that seemed noble. But yeah, and like Tom being his foil and like protesting the war and all this, and these two different people are connected and don't even know it. I know. That was, like I said, those were the only people I was really sad for.
But let's also be clear, he was manipulated by that war recruiter.
By the recruiter.
Yeah.
And the black kid, Vincent, was like, well, they're going to get me anyway because I'm a brother.
Yeah.
He was right.
He was correct.
Like you saw even the different facets of how they ended up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It was, you could see the train crash coming. You could see the train coming off the tracks, but you couldn't stop it. And it felt like something that was very good in the book was that it sort of did expose that like all these sacrifices that people were making, even in the forms of like, the life of their child, were pointless and meaningless. Like people went and did these things and participated in these wars, sometimes out of like really good intentions and like really feeling like they're going to be brave, they're going to do the right thing. But what they really get is just sort of like, they're just hurt, and then the people around them are hurt. And even if they don't die, they come back different than they were before. And that's a lot of sacrifice for something that, wasn't really worth it.
I think the most heartbreaking part of the book was his letter, the last letter that he sent to Tom, and where he said, I wish that the adults had told us what war was really like. Just no one talks about it. It's not some picnic. It's not great. Like it's actually hell on earth. And I wish someone had told me about it because, yeah, he had war veterans in his household. He had friends who were war veterans who could have warned him about this and chose not to.
And that's where it sort of full circle comes back to Cal not being able to enlist himself. Like it all stems back to the beginning where like Cal wanted to do this. He then learned what it was like and didn't want his son to do it, but his son could do it. So he did.
Yeah.
So it was kind of this full circle, really unfortunate completion of an arc.
Yes. And it all comes back to truth telling in the end because Felix dies and him and his son would have had more time together if he was honest about his health and was able to be vulnerable and communicate. that. And, for Skip's part, he may not have felt the need to leave if he was also willing to be honest about how he was impacted and how hurt he was. But the cycle of abandonment continues until he comes back. What did you guys think of the end?
Oh, you're talking about Tom, not Skip.
Oh, sorry. I really keep forgetting which is which.
Buckeye.
Buckeye. Yeah, that one.
I mean, it's so sad. And
I liked it.
The ending's good, yes.
But yeah, it was sad in a bittersweet sort of like that's life way. But Tom still had a parent around sort of in Cal that got to see him grow up. Like they patched two families together into one, So like kind of happy ending for Cal. He ended up with his kid anyway, but
yeah.
I don't know. It was bittersweet. I appreciate that Becky and Cal. I'm glad Becky got a happy ending.
Yeah. Becky deserved it.
Yeah. At long last. Also, I know we haven't explicitly talked about this, but also a lot of commentary about like just marrying the first person that you come across. Like, even if you can manage to be happy with that person, like it's not necessarily like the greatest of marriages. Like
that's kind of how it went back then, though.
Yeah, but I was like, that's dark. Like this is a great advertisement for not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Not that any of us.
That's why we are all still unmarried.
Yeah.
Thank you for the advertisement.
Yeah, not that we needed to see it. Okay. Well, I think that's it. Anything else you guys want to say? You guys got book recommendations?
Demon Copperhead?
Yep.
A good recommendation.
I thought about that too. The other one I thought about was The Women by Kristen.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Similar time period.
Also similarly paced, but just like way more the ripple of war and what it did and unfaithfulness and how that affects people, etc.
Right. I'm going to recommend Pachinko, which is a book I just read. And it is also historical fiction, sort of a long, multi-generational epic that details a lot of Korean history. So not Americana vibes, but if you enjoy reading very long generational historical fiction, you will love it because it was very good.
I'll also recommend When the Emperor Was Divine. It's based in World War II Japanese internment in the U.S.
No shortage of war books to recommend.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's that. Rate and review our podcast 5 stars, please. And drop us a line with your thoughts. Tell us if there's books that you want us to read. We'll try to read them.
We have a pretty solid list coming up, but let us know. Also, this is the week ACOTAR announced new books, so get ready, guys.
Oh, we're gonna be reading
We're live again.
Yeah,
we're so back
to life.
October and January, get ready for it.
Yeah,
yes,
we're so back.
Anyway, you can find us everywhere at busygirlspod.com or just on the social handles. And with that, I'm Catherine.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Casey. Thanks for listening. And when you get a chance, take a break with the Busy Girls Book Club.